You know that weird feeling? You're sitting at your desk, maybe reaching for your water glass,
Hmm.
and it's full, but you don't remember filling it up. Like you weren't even thirsty.
Ah, yeah, that little disconnect. It happens, doesn't it?
It really does, and it makes you think, how often does that happen with work? You just sort of do things, autopilot.
Exactly. And that's really what we're getting into today, isn't it? How we can get so um, wrapped up in our work
Yeah.
that we kind of lose touch with, well, other parts of ourselves without even noticing sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And, thinking about how our minds perceive things, Gestalt psychology seems, well, really relevant here.
It really does. That core idea, the figure-ground relationship, it's fundamental.
Right. So whatever you're focusing on, that's the figure. It stands out.
Hmm. And everything else, the context, the background noise, that becomes the ground. It just fades back.
Like in a busy cafe, maybe? You focus on your conversation, that's the figure.
Precisely. The clatter, the music, other
Yeah.
people talking, that's all ground. Until maybe a song you love comes on.
Oh, okay. And then that becomes the figure for a moment.
Your attention shifts. It's fluid. Or it should be fluid.
So bringing it back to work. The tasks, the emails, the meetings, for a lot of us, that whole world becomes the main figure, right?
It really can. It's not just the hours you put in. It starts to shape what you even notice, where your mental energy goes. It can even start to defining how you see yourself.
And that's the deep dive for today, really. How does work become so dominant, and what does that do to our sense of, well, our whole self?
Well, let's talk about that autopilot thing you mentioned, the autopilot paradox, maybe. We all know about flow, right? That state where you're super focused, productive.
Yeah, time just vanishes. It can feel great.
It can. But there's a potential downside, especially in a work context. When you're constantly in that mode, efficiency can actually lead to less self-awareness about how the work is affecting you.
Oh, interesting. So you get so good at something
Hmm.
that you stop consciously thinking about doing it, like a musician playing a piece they know inside out.
Exactly. Their fingers just know where to go. It's fluid, automatic. But that conscious sense of, I am playing this note right now, that awareness of self in the moment can diminish.
And when that becomes your default mode at work, drafting the same kind of reports, running routine meetings, coding familiar patterns.
It all shifts, yeah.
Yeah.
From deliberate action to automatic processing. It feels efficient.
Looks efficient from the outside, too. You're ticking boxes, getting stuff done.
But underneath, that's where the subtle shift can happen. You might start sort of blurring the lines between what you do and who you are.
Right. Your value feels tied to your output. Your performance is your personhood, almost.
And Gestalt principles give us some clues about how that happens perceptually. Think about proximity.
Okay.
If you have back-to-back meetings, then jump straight into writing a report, then calls. Those tasks just blend together, don't they? Like one long string.
Yeah, no gaps, no breathing room between things.
And then similarity. If you spend hours answering similar emails or doing repetitive data tasks,
It all feels the same after a while. Hard to see your unique input in each one.
exactly, it blurs. And continuity, our tendency to stick with routines, even if they're not really working for us anymore. Breaking those habits takes real effort.
Even if you know the routine is burning you out.
Right. And finally, closure. We're wired to want to finish things and, get that satisfaction.
Oh, yeah. The tyranny of the to-do list.
But that drive can make us prioritize just completing tasks over thinking about whether they're actually valuable or meaningful.
Right.
Get stuck in a cycle.
So all these principles together, proximity, similarity, continuity, closure,
Yeah.
that build this kind of...
Perceptual scaffolding, you could call it. Work becomes this huge, dominant structure in your awareness.
And everything else, relationships, hobbies, just downtime gets pushed into the background, becomes indistinct ground.
Leading to that feeling you mentioned earlier, a fragmented self. Bits of you scattered across unfinished tasks, unreturned calls, vague guilt about neglecting other areas.
And it feels like society almost encourages this, doesn't it? The whole hustle culture thing. Busyness equals success.
Absolutely, it's celebrated. Constant activity looks like dedication. Choosing to slow down can feel like failure almost.
Which is ironic because that constant pressure, that celebrated behavior, is often what harms our well-being most.
And there's a neurological aspect too, Chronic stress actually changes the brain. It can shrink the prefrontal cortex, your planning center, and enlarge the amygdala, your threat detector.
Wow. So stress literally makes you focus more on threats and demands.
It can skew your perception that way, yes.
Yeah.
Which, in Gestalt terms, makes the figure of work demand seem even bigger. more urgent, more overwhelming.
While the things that restore you, shrinks further away.
It's like staring so hard at one tiny detail in a painting, you completely lose sense of the whole picture. You lose perspective on your life.
So how does work go from being part of life to feeling like the whole thing? Because for many people, their job is a huge part of their identity, right?
Oh, absolutely. We derive meaning, purpose, validation from our work.
Right.
It's natural, it's human. But when that identification becomes too strong, when the professional role starts to eclipse everything else, that's where the imbalance creates vulnerability.
Like a plant in a pot that's too small, the roots just circle inward eventually.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Your growth gets restricted because the container, the dominant focus on work, is too limiting for the whole self.
So the question becomes, where are the boundaries between me and my work? Have they gotten fuzzy or just gone?
And what happens to the rest of you then? This brings us back to figure ground again. Healthy functioning means that relationship is dynamic. Your focus shifts naturally.
But if work is always the figure?
It monopolizes your perception.
Yeah.
Everything else fades.
Yeah.
And over time, that can lead to a kind of figure ground reversal.
Right, Danny.
Meaning the context of your life, your
Mhm.
personal needs, relationships, fades so much it barely registers. Work becomes the only reality you fully perceive.
That sounds terrifyingly like burnout. That feeling of being trapped, where even rest feels work-related because you're thinking about emails or problems.
Exactly. The role becomes the entire existence. And there's another Gestalt concept, isomorphism. It suggests our inner world kind of mirrors the external patterns we engage with.
So if work dominates the external figure.
It reshapes your internal sense of self. That line between me and my work just dissolves.
Wow. Okay. And this ties into contact and withdrawal, right? That rhythm.
Yes, absolutely essential.
Hmm.
We need contact, full engagement with our environment, our tasks, people. But we equally need withdrawal, stepping back, processing, recharging.
It's a rhythm. Inhale, exhale.
Beautifully put. But modern work culture, it often pushes for constant contact, doesn't
Yeah.
it? The notifications, the always-on expectations.
Yeah, withdrawal feels like a luxury, or even slacking off.
And when you constantly suppress that need for withdrawal, well, there are consequences. You lose perspective. Your focus gets stuck on the immediate. You can't easily check if you're aligned with your bigger goals or values.
Your attention gets scattered. Cognitive overload. Exhaustion.
And less energy left over for anything else. Hobbies, relationships, personal growth, they get the dregs.
And you mentioned closure earlier. This feels related. If you never withdraw to process things.
You get a buildup of unresolved experiences, open loops, unfinished business, mentally and emotionally. That's a huge source of stress, of failure to achieve psychological closure.
It feels like there's this societal myth of infinite capacity. Just keep pushing, be more productive, and you'll be happy and successful.
Right. But Gestalt thinking, with its field theory, offers a counter-narrative. It sees us as part of an interconnected system, internal states, external demands. Everything affects everything else.
Like an ecosystem.
Exactly. And if you overload one part of that field, the whole system feels the strain. It starts to break down.
Like stretching a rubber band too far.
It snaps. That's a perfect metaphor. Burnout is often that snapping point. It's a sign your psychological ecosystem has been pushed past its limits. You've got this backlog of incomplete gestalts, unresolved stuff demanding attention.
So those classic burnout signs, the fatigue, detachment, irritability, feeling ineffective, cynical, the physical stuff, how do they map onto these Gestalt ideas?
They map very directly. Chronic fatigue, that's depleted energy for present moment contact. Detachment, it's a defensive withdrawal because healthy contact feels impossible. Irritability, that's the unresolved tension in the field bubbling up.
And feeling like you accomplish nothing, even when busy.
That's a breakdown in closure. You can't get that satisfying feeling of completion. Cynicism follows a loss of faith in meaningful contact after being let down or exhausted too many times.
Physical symptoms.
The body speaking, the mind's imbalance. Somatization and reduced performance. That's the whole field collapsing under the strain. They're all signals of disrupted balance, coherence, flow.
It's strange, isn't it? We think overworking is about control, about choosing success, but it sounds like it leads to losing control, losing autonomy.
It's deeply paradoxical.
Yeah.
When work becomes the dominant figure, you stop acting proactively based on your values and start reacting reactively to its demands. It dictates your actions.
You mentioned creative adjustment before adapting healthily while staying true to yourself. How does burnout contrast with that?
Burnout is often a sign of shifting away from creative adjustment towards, well, a more pathological adjustment. Rigidity, conformity. You sacrifice your individuality just to comply, to survive the demands.
And that loss of creativity, that rigidity, it doesn't stay contained within work, does it?
You know, it bleeds out. It can affect how you approach relationships, how you spend your free time, your ability to find joy or be spontaneous.
So the path to freedom isn't always doing more.
Sometimes it's about the courage to do less, to intentionally let go, to create space.
Okay, so if someone listening recognizes this pattern work as the overwhelming figure, the ground disappearing, what's a first step? How do you start to bring the ground back?
Awareness is always the first step. Just noticing, seeing how work has shaped your perception, your attention. It's not about ditching your job or your ambition.
Right.
It's about consciously redefining success, maybe. Building in balance, authenticity, sustainability. I mean, intentionally honoring that rhythm of contact and withdrawal, respecting your limits,
Yeah.
actively seeking closure, integration.
So burnout isn't just a dead end, it's maybe a signal, a very loud one.
Exactly. Not just breakdown, potential breakthrough, a crisis of closure, like you said, all those unfinished gestalts demanding attention.
I like that image of a cracked mirror you used before.
Huh.
Broken, yes, but it reflects light differently, shows new angles.
Burnout can crack the smooth surface of your usual routine and reveal things about yourself, your needs, your life that were hidden or ignored.
An existential enough is enough.
Yes, a moment forcing you to ask, what really matters? What's my purpose beyond just producing?
And it really challenges that idea that work me and real me are separate things.
They're not separate. They're part of one field. Losing yourself in work fractures the whole foundation.
So integration is the goal,
Yeah.
weaving work into a bigger picture of a whole life aligned with your values.
That's where liberation often lies.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the edge of awareness. Burnout pushes you right there, doesn't it? That tension between achievement and belonging, doing and being.
And that's where insight can happen, a sudden shift in perspective.
Precisely. Exhaustion meets a new understanding. And it can be triggered by anything. Really, a stray comment, a feeling in your body, something small that suddenly clicks.
But the insight itself isn't enough, is it? You have to do something with it.
You have to integrate it, pay sustained attention, make different choices based on that new awareness. And remember, wholeness isn't a destination you reach. It's dynamic. It needs ongoing attention, flexibility, authenticity. That's real resilience.
Which brings us to that really big question, maybe the core one. Who are you, really, beyond your job title, beyond the tasks and responsibilities?
If you strip all that away, what's left? Burnout kind of forces that confrontation, doesn't it? It strips away illusions about what truly matters.
And finding the answer. That's a personal journey. No easy formula.
Guided by intuition, courage, maybe some trial and error.
So for everyone listening, the invitation is just to notice. Pay attention. How is work shaping your perception? Where are the imbalances? Maybe see burnout not as an endpoint, but a threshold.
A doorway to something different, potentially. An ongoing conversation with yourself.
So let's just pause for a second, take a breath, and maybe ask, am I living in alignment with my true self right now? Or an identity that's become maybe too tangled up with my work? The answer might be surprising.
And it might just hold the key to something.
Well, something extraordinary.